You know when you're in the right lane, and you just kind of keep, not the right lane, but like the correct lane, I should say.
Yeah.
And you just keep on picking up tidbits because you know you're driving on the right road here. Like, it seems like you've been in that zone now. Like, at least I've been following you for like a year. It seems like you've never wavered. Like, you're very consistently happy on the path you're on.
Dude, I've been in that lane since I was 13 years old. There's a blog out there that I wrote on time management telling people how to be happier. And I was 13 years old. When you say like the podcast has helped me like come to Peter Crone, I think that's true in some sense. But I also think like it's destiny in a way. Like, what 13-year-old is writing about happiness for generations at 13 years old? Like, that doesn't happen. And so this is a manifestation of, like, I feel like my soul's purpose.
What made you want to write about happiness at 13?
I have no idea. I have no clue. I was writing about Gary Vaynerchuk and how people can be happier.
When you were 13?
Yes.
Gary V was around then?
2009, I was watching his wine library TV show.
Really?
I was probably the only 13-year-old on the planet doing that.
So you were on that guy before anybody?
Yes.
Wow.
And so when...
You're watching a wine TV show, you're 13.
That's how I got him on the podcast, was because I tweeted out the blog post of me writing about Gary Vee in 2009. And he followed me from that. When he followed me, I tweeted out that he followed me. After he followed me, the people in the comments saying, yo, you got to go on this guy's podcast. So this shit's in me at a deep level.
Wow.
And so I think I was just born with this. And if you're born with it, like, this is just a manifestation of how to get better at that skill. Helping people understand who they are and release them from the blockages that they've been living in. Like, that's what I was trying to do at 13. That's what I'm trying to do with the podcast. That's what Peter Crone does so very well. And I'm just trying to live that out to the best of my abilities, because I want people to be more free, to be happier, to feel the way that I feel. I wish everyone felt that way. And if they did, the world would be a lighter place, like lighter from an energy perspective. And man, oh man, like, I will do everything in my power for however many years I am given to do that. And I feel like very much like this is a mission that was sent to me in this body and mind before I could even, like, truly, like, I feel like I was placed with this responsibility.
Do you have people like in your family or friends that you grew up around who have a similar outlook on things?
My grandpa did everything successful in life, but has he does zero interest in teaching other people. He has zero interest in breaking it down, the psychology of what he did or how he did it successfully. My parents, like, my mom is like a therapist, and that's like the closest similarity.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, but she's a lawyer by trade, but she's a therapist. Like, she'll be a therapist to me. She'll like listen to my problems and explain how I could do things differently in a non-judgmental way. So yeah, that's where it comes from, I guess. But it's not like she has any desires to like help people at a grand scale like that, you know?
But there's some sort of baseline there, clearly.
Yeah.
Because you felt, it sounds like if she was good at what you just said, she listened to understand you. Mm-hmm. And that's how you listen to other people, right? It's like my dad didn't do a podcast, but he's a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he's good at that. He can do, my mom's good at that too. So maybe that's where it comes from. They didn't even know what a podcast was. You know, they don't know, they don't see content lines like online. They just, you know, something pops up, they watch it. You know, they're not thinking about that like you and I are, but they can have like that I always just look for that baseline. That's all it is. It's not like someone needs to be doing the same thing or thinking the same type of way or saying the same types of things, but is there like some sort of like spark there that you can point to and be like, ooh, that's where it maybe started. And it sounds like you had that.
Yeah. It's interesting from the lawyer to the podcaster child, because it's a very interesting similarity. What do you have to do when you're a lawyer? You have to read through a bunch of stuff, talk to a bunch of people, figure out how to present your side the best. What do you do when you're a podcaster? You read through a bunch of stuff, you listen to a bunch of stuff, and then you ask questions to try to help somebody somewhere understand the world better.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's a very big similarity that I never thought of before doing it. But after, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Well, lawyers are great lawyers are problem solvers and communicators.
Yes.
They have to be both, including when you have to communicate in court when it's very by the book and by the rules and robotic. Like, you still have to be able to artfully find your way around that. So I think it's funny you say that. I think lawyers are really, that's the type of job, the type of profession that, depending on your personality type, that is a part of it. But you could go into that and you could almost, not anything, but you could do a lot of things besides being a lawyer just by having that expertise. Like, the amount of emotional intelligence things that you have to understand to do that job, that you fucking do anything, man. So maybe there is something to that. Maybe, like, because I never wanted to be a lawyer. I knew that at a young age. But maybe, like, the way we litigate some things on the podcast, it's just like, for whatever reason, I was the guy who didn't want to look at some dude in a black robe and call him Your Honor. But, you know, we'll sit here on a podcast and say what the fuck is going on and maybe get somewhere. Different strokes, different folks, but maybe the same pool, you know?
Yeah, and I heard what you did for that Raj podcast. Like, you were listening to hours and reading through hours and hours, and he's saying you know the case better than he does. And it's like, well, that's the same skill that your dad probably used.
Yeah, my dad actually looked at some of the cases too while we were looking. Yeah, dude, that's a great example. 100%. Like that, I think I've even used, I might have said it on your podcast, but like, we litigated the case. Like, that's what we did. And I was saying there was some better ways I'd do that today. But that was an important podcast, and maybe that was a little part of it. It's like, all right, well, let's get to all the facts here so no one can poke any holes in it. You know, hopefully we did that. But you know, like what I do and what you do, and we were also talking about this a little bit earlier on the previous one we did on your show, but like, you know, we go about it in different ways, but I always appreciate how other people cook the meal. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you're like I'm the guy who comes in here, throws on the camera, and just gets someone talking and sees where we can go. You're the guy who digs into every single thing about people's lives and whatever. And it's interesting to me because in my previous career, while I did the former, I also did the latter, right? Like, I'd know about people before I went to meet them. I'd find everything. So I think a part of me, like when I was watching how you did it, was like, oh, that's just like me in my career or whatever. But had you ever really like, you obviously had heroes who you looked into and knew a lot about, but had you ever done things in your life where you were really like having to do homework, like investigations almost on other people before meeting them? Or was there anything applicable to that, or how did that go down?
I would just meet people and I would just stalk them. Like,
all right, go ahead.
Like, that is what I do, like, naturally, because I'm so curious about people, how they relate to other people, how they built themselves up. And so I'll just find myself like going down rabbit holes of like, oh, I just met that person. Like, what's going on with them? Like, and my dad will do the same thing. Like, and I used to think that was weird, and maybe it is, but that's just your curiosity coming to the forefront using the tools that we've been given. And I'm just not, there's a couple of things going on. One, I'm really curious about people and like what they are doing with their time on earth. And two, I'm like, I want to know how all the pieces put together. And then the other thing is like, I want to come prepared. Like, I want that person to be like, oh shit, I didn't even realize that about myself. Like, wow, I do that. Or wow, like, because a lot of the times if I'm researching somebody and I'm learning about them, I know them better than they know themselves. And that sounds funny and that sounds like crazy almost, but it's true. Like, how well do you know yourself from 2013 or 2016? Like, when was the last time you spent a thought with yourself from those years? Like,
have you meditated on that, bro?
Right? Like,
yeah,
it really is true. And it's a remarkable thing to be able to give people perspectives about themselves that they forgot about. And I take a lot of pride in doing that. And I take a lot of pride in giving people new perspectives on themselves.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.